Hi folks, my name is Jax McNamara and we are in my art studio. I'm going to give you a little tour. Today we're going to be doing a lesson where we work on how to create a complete illustration or graphic using images and text. And I'll show you a couple examples of some things I've created. So we're going to walk through today the process of how I made this piece. It is actually the artwork that's being used for a podcast as both its logo and the artwork that shows up on, like iTunes and stuff like that. This is a little recent piece I made that was used to make a logo design for somebody, and I'll show you some other work later. I'm going to show you a little bit of my studio. So this is where I work. I'm giving you the unedited, non-cleaned up version of what it actually looks like in here. I kind of have two streams of art that I make. One is more abstract, and it's these pieces on wood that you see here. And these are mostly made, I'll show you a few on the wall too. These are mostly made with tree slices and ink and some pastel. And these pieces are really where I just kind of let my imagination flow. I don't plan them out in advance. I kind of follow the wood grain and then listen to music and make things up based on what flows into my consciousness. But today we're not going to be working on this kind of work because I suspect most of you probably don't have pieces of wood laying around. So we're going to be working on some representational illustration work, and I'm going to talk about how to plan out your composition and take it from a beginning idea to a finished project. So yeah, Okay, I'm back. So we are going to look at some examples from my portfolio of the kind of project that we're going to be doing today, and I'm going to talk you through the steps that are involved in getting there. Cleaned up the art table and laid out some examples of work for you, and we're going to talk about them. So let's start out with this piece down here. So this piece was a commission I did to make the cover of a book, and then also it was used as a poster. And the assignment I was given was specifically to find an illustration for the text, "Friends Make the Best Medicine." And the project I was working on is called the Icarus Project, and it involves winged people as one of the motifs in the project, so that's why there are these people with wings. So I designed the poster knowing that it was going to need to have a lot of text on it. So I planned out that I would have this dark area at the top, which, as you can see here, later has white text on it. And then I planned out that I would have dark areas down here that would also later have white text on them. And the project was based out of New York City, so I did a bunch of Google image searches for images of New York City that I could work with, and then eventually dreamed up this whole thing. And so now let's take a look at another project. This one here was also a poster design, and it was for an organization called Intentional Peer Support. It's a mental health group, and they wanted diverse people in their image. They wanted something that felt friendly and outside, and they also had a lot of text. And a lot of my work, I add my text in Photoshop in post-production. So I'll make the original piece on paper and I'll leave space, and then I'll go in later in Photoshop and add the text. So this piece, I designed it with these big branches so that I could arc all the words over these branches. And then there were also some words that went down here. So this is a really early piece. This was a stencil. It says, "We are still free." A lot of my work has been done for different social justice organizations. So there's a lot of emphasis on, freedom and liberation and community. I would say those are kind of the main themes in this work. And then here's another piece I did that also was a book cover. It says, "You are not alone." And these are actually individual little pieces of paper that come up. So I did this one kind of graphic novel style. And if I didn't like a frame, I just threw it out and made another one and stuck it in until I put together what I liked. And then let's look at this piece. So this, I'm going to be real with you, it is not my favorite piece of art I've ever made, but it is exactly what my client wanted. She wrote this journal, this guided journal called My Happy Book, to try to help people find gratitude and happiness, and she wanted a big smiling sun rising over a hillside. So sometimes when you're a professional artist working on commissions for people, you don't always get to do what you love. But the reason I want to show you this one is because I still have my thumbnail sketches from when I designed it. So when I'm coming up with an idea for a project like this, often I'll do what's called making thumbnail sketches. So in this case, I drew out 6 rectangles that were the same approximate dimensions as the book cover. And then inside of them, I put really not detailed images where I was experimenting with how high should the sun be on the page, how much of the page should it take up, should there be lots of space at the top, should there be a little bit of space at the top. I was just kind of coming up with my composition. So composition is the idea, if you think about music, so a composition is like a symphony, all the different instruments and how do they fit together, as opposed to a solo where you're just drawing one thing. So when I'm working on commercial work like this, I have to think about the whole composition. How will all the pieces come together, and where will there be space for my text, and what colors will I use? So you can see I made these guys, and then eventually, I don't still have the original painting for this one, but I got out a piece of paper, taped it down, used my favorite thumbnail sketch, drew it in. These letters are handwritten, the My Happy Book, and then these ones are put in Photoshop with text. And there's the finished thing. Then I'm going to show you one more, and this is the piece we're going to use as an example today. So over here is the one I mentioned in the beginning that is being used as the cover art for a podcast. So when I was coming up with this composition, I actually made a collage with digital images I found in Google, and I'm going to show you all how to hunt for images on Google. So my text I needed to work from was so many wings. That's what I had to illustrate. And I decided I wanted different kinds of creatures with wings. So I was like, how about a dragon, a butterfly, a raven, a dragonfly, a hummingbird, another butterfly, and a person with wings. And so I went and hunted up each of these images and then shrunk them to the right size and then literally made a collage with them. And then I transferred that collage, and I'll show you how this process works using graphite pencil transfer. I transferred the outlines onto this piece of paper, and then I used pen and ink to color all of them in and finish them, and then put it on the computer and turned it into a graphic. So we'll walk through this a bit. So there's some examples. Okay, now we're going to talk about what materials you need for this project. So you're going to need a pencil and an eraser, some kind of black pen. I recommend a ballpoint or a permanent marker, some source imagery, which you can get from photos, magazines, or the internet. And I'm going to show you how to use Google image search on the internet to get your images. You're going to need something to apply color. So that could be crayons, colored pencils, paint, ink, watercolor. You're going to need some blank paper. You can just use regular printer paper if you've got it. If you're going to use water-based media, then I would recommend some kind of drawing paper or watercolor paper. And optional, a printer and a smartphone. So now let's talk about finding text that you want to work with. So here's some words that I've illustrated. We are still free. You are not alone. So many ways to be beautiful. Another one I did was down here, navigating the space between brilliance and madness. So these are all pieces of text I was given. I've also used text from poems I've written. You can also use a lyric from a song you really like. So I want you to choose a simple piece of text. Also, if you want to make something like a children's book, this technique is relevant. So pick your text. Pause this video, take some time to do a little writing and decide what you want to illustrate. Okay, so you've chosen your text, and now we're going to talk about finding images, and we're going to talk about Google image search. So if you go to images.google.com, you will come up with this page, Google Images. And then you can go into your search bar, and you can look for whatever you want. So you can be like, I need to find some wings. Bam, here's a bunch of wings. you can say to yourself, you know, actually what I really need specifically is I need a hummingbird. Let's look for hummingbirds. And then you can select, do I want a hummingbird with a flower? Do I want a colorful hummingbird? A purple hummingbird? A flying hummingbird? A beautiful hummingbird? So you can see the options go on. You can also tell it, and this is useful if you click on tools, what size of images you want. If you're going to print stuff, it can be nice to tell it large image files, and those are going to print better. So I will often go through here, and if I find an image I like, that's a great hummingbird, right? I will open that image in a new tab, and boom, there it is. And then I can come back to my image search and I can look for my next image. I can be like, all right, I want a hummingbird and I want a dragon. There are some badass dragons. And then I'm like, you know, actually what I need a silhouette of a dragon. So let's Google dragon silhouette. Bam, there's some nifty dragon silhouettes. So you get the idea. So you do some hunting, you find the images you want. If you are able to print them, that can be really nice to work from. But sometimes I don't print my images. You can also use Google Image Search on your phone. And so I'll just pull them up on my phone and sketch from them one at a time. Or you can pull them up on a tablet. That works really well, like an iPad if you have something like that around the house. Okay, so next you are going to do some image hunting. Find all the images you need to inspire your composition. And go ahead and pause this video and come back to it when you have a bunch of images. Okay, so now you've got your images, and I'm going to suggest to you 2 ways of developing the idea for your composition. One is to make a collage where you can literally cut and paste your different images together if you are able to print them out. The other is to do the thumbnails like I talked about earlier, where you arrange little versions of your images to show you what it would look like for them all to fit together in space. And in your thumbnail, you can also draw in your text and get a sense of where does it look good? Where do you want it to be? Do you want it at the top of your page? Do you want it on top of something? Etc. So you're going to take some time to assemble your different images and to maybe make a collage with them. And so this is not your final product. This is what you're going to use to draw from as your inspiration. So go ahead and put your images together, move them around on the page, and decide for yourself where you want them to be so that you get the composition you're happy with. And pause this video and come back when you have them assembled. Okay, we're back. So now we're at the stage where you're going to transfer your thumbnail drawing idea onto the piece of paper that you're going to make the final product with. And I'm going to show you a really cool way that you can do that. So if you have your images in a collage or something like this, I'm going to show you a technique called Graphite Transfer. The way this works is you flip over your image and you color in pencil all behind your image. And if I hold this up to the window, you can see through it the image on the other side. So all I did here is literally took a regular old pencil and scribble, 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 scribble behind the things that I want to transfer over. Scribble, 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 scribble. Once you've got your scribbles, you are going to open up a blank piece of paper. You're going to put this down. It can help if you have some tape to tape it so it doesn't move. And then I'll use this dragon as an example. You're going to take your pencil and you're just going to outline it. So I'm going around my tail here. It's kind of hard to do with one hand while holding the camera, but we'll get there. So normally I would do this more carefully, but I'm just trying to give you all the idea. So I'm moving around my outline. Almost done with my dragon outline. Doing kind of a lousy job. All right. And then if this was taped down, you can peel it back and check, did it transfer? Yes! Boom, it transferred. And so this is how I did this guy over here. Is I taped down this paper because I knew that I was going to use water-based media. I was going to use ink, which can make your paper buckle. So first I taped it down. And then I transferred all of these guys like that. So they were in my composition on my page. And then we'll move on to the next step. So go ahead and pause the video, and you are going to transfer your composition onto the final piece of paper using a pencil and an eraser. You don't need to put all the details in yet. We're just trying to get everything located on the page. So now we're going to talk about laying in your blacks. So I often like to create an image with definition using a black pen. You could use a ballpoint pen or a permanent pen based on the sketch you made. So I look at my source material, which is over here for inspiration, and I start to lay in some outlines and some details, like where's this little guy's eye? Maybe I'll look at the structure of where the feathers are, for example. So I'm going to get that all laid in, and then we'll move on to color. Okay, so I'm back and I'm adding color. So I'm using colored pencil here. You could also use crayons for this part. If you have crayons, it's particularly nice if you did your work in pen first, because crayons are so hard to make details with that having used pen initially will give your drawing a lot more definition and make it a lot easier to see what's going on. You could also use watercolor for this if you keep your brush pretty dry, like get most of the paint off before you paint onto it. You can use ink. You can use anything that's going to create color for you. So you're going to go through your whole drawing. You're going to make sure you've done your pen work, and then you're going to add your color to it. All right, so here we are with the final painting. So what I did next with this when it was done is I took it outside and photographed it in natural light. And then we're going to walk over to my computer. I uploaded that image from my smartphone onto my computer, added some text, put a purple circle around it, and that is the basic final image. And then I uploaded a version of it onto our website for the podcast So Many Wings. And then I sent the graphic to Apple. And there it is on Apple Podcasts. So Many Wings, the final thing. So thank you so much. Okay, folks, so we are about done, and I just want to let you know how you can find me if you're interested in seeing more of my work. And my website, so you can come visit jacksmcnamara.net, and that will give you my writing, my art, lots of things I'm up to. So again, jacksmcnamara.net. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at jacksmcnamara. Have a good one.